What are you looking for?
Scarabs? Well, a board game about looking for scarabs, actually.
What? Now that's clearly a stick.
It's a board game leverage stick, which I'm going to use to get it right out of the bushes. Found it. Scarabya is a tile-laying game of ancient proportions where players take the role of archaeologists as they place different shaped tiles on their player boards to create excavation sites. These excavation sites are uncovered negative spaces on the player boards. Scarabs that are left uncovered score players points, provided that they're in an excavation site of 4 squares or less. The player who can strategically place their tiles most effectively to maximise their points will win the game.
A game of Scarabya is played over 12 rounds. Players begin by selecting a coloured frame, assigning the greatest explorer role to the youngest player, who then builds their game board by using the 4 large tiles whilst also placing the 3D pimple-shaped rock obstacles inside the holes. The other players then copy this setup exactly. Each player's archaeological site contains 3 types of spaces: a scarab space, an empty space, and a rock space. Across each round, the Great Explorer draws a mission card from the deck and reveals it. These cards tell players which tile shape they'll be placing on their board for the round. Players simultaneously take their corresponding tile shape of their own colour and place on the board, ensuring that the placement of their first tile covers at least one of the 4 central squares. Tiles placed may not overlap with other tiles. They cannot extend beyond the frame or be placed on top of rocks. Subsequent tiles added to a player's board must be connected adjacently to an existing tile. Players earn points by enclosing uncovered scarabs using their tiles, ensuring that the enclosed area is 4 squares or less. This is known as an excavation area. At the end of a round, if a scarab is enclosed in this way, it scores points equal to the size of the excavation site. For example, the scarab in this excavation area would score 2 points. If multiple scarabs are enclosed this way, the player scores points for both scarabs equally. Once a scarab has been scored, a token is placed on top of it to indicate that this has been completed. Play continues until all mission cards have been drawn and final scoring is completed. The player who has earned the highest number of points wins the game.
There are 5 things you should know if you're thinking about getting Scarabya for your board game collection. Number 1, Scarabya is an excellent spatial puzzle. It puts a really great refreshing twist on the polyomino tile placement board game genre. Unlike in other games like Patchwork, where you're trying to use the tiles to cover up all of the spaces, here you're exploiting the negative uncovered spaces. It's really pleasing to see that when you have created an excavation site of 3 or 4 squares in size and to have 2 scarabs in them, to be able to score double points. Placing tiles early in the game has a flow-on effect later in the game. So it's really important that players know the composition of the mission deck and also to have all their tiles splayed out in front of them. Because as the game gets towards its end point, players need to really think carefully about how they're placing their shapes and how the other tiles will fit into this big puzzle. So it's a game about forward planning, adapting to different situations, and think about how you're going to subdivide the space that you're given. A brand new shelf. Number 2. Each game of Scarabya always feels really tight, and as players get towards the end of the game feels more and more restrictive. The 3D obstacles that are included in the game really shape the decisions that players make from turn to turn. At the beginning of the game, players are simply placing their tiles down, hoping not to cover up some of those scarabs. Whilst towards the 7th, 8th or 9th tile, players are then now weighing up whether they should cover up some scarabs in order to exploit the point scoring abilities of another scarab somewhere else on the board. Being able to make these very weighted decisions really makes this game quite interesting, and the way that the tiles can all fit together and the different variations of how they fit together makes the game very replayable. Number 3. Similar to other board games like Karuba and Number 9, Scarabya has minimal player interaction, especially at the multiplayer mode. Here, players are mainly focused on what they're doing on their own board and not worrying about other players. Players may sometimes look at what another player does, especially at the beginning of the game, and copy their tile placement. But that is the extent of how players actually interact with each other. Towards the end of the game, players may compare their boards and how they place the tiles to see who was most efficient, but that is as far as it goes. However, the game does include two other modes, head-to-head mode and solo mode.
In head-to-head mode, two players are essentially racing to find as many scarabs as they can on the same archaeological site. Players take turns drawing mission cards and placing a polyomino tile onto the same board. At the end of a player's turn, if they successfully enclose a scarab, they earn points. The player with the highest score after all mission cards have been drawn wins. In solo mode, a player is attempting to cover up all of the scarab icons on the archaeological site before the mission deck runs out.
4. Despite its simplistic rule set and short playtime, the game can be prone to some analysis paralysis. That means during the mid-game when there's about 5 tiles left over, players can often spend a long time trying to position their tiles in lots of different ways to try and help maximize their score by the end of the game. This can sometimes hold up the other players and stop the game from finishing in a satisfactory amount of time. Number 5. Scarabya is already entering into a board game genre that's quite overpopulated. You've got games like Cottage Garden, Indian Summer, Number 9, and Patchwork. If you don't have any of those games that I just mentioned, Scarabya might be a game that you try before you buy it, and it's well worth a look. It's got an excellent table presence, it's got some really good decision and spatial decision making opportunities, as well as a very simple and easy to learn rule set. Perfect for the family. If you have all these other games already, where Scarabya differs is that this one is more about using the uncovered spaces and trying to maneuver around particular spots on the board.
In Patchwork, players are purchasing polyomino tiles using buttons and attempting to sew a quilt by covering as much of their own player board as effectively as possible. In Number 9, players are stacking and placing numbered shaped polyomino tiles adjacent to each other to create a really strong foundation. Players then try to stack as many tiles on top of each other as possible without leaving any overhangs. The twist in this game is that points are scored based on the numbered tile placed multiplied by how many levels up it is.
Scarabya is different enough for you to pique your interest, but whether you should buy it, that's something that you need to decide by having a go at it first. Thank you once again for joining me for another board game review at Board Game Sanctuary. I really enjoy showing you and bringing you these great, wonderful, exciting games. If you really like my videos, please like, subscribe and share. And once again, I want to say a huge thank you out to all the viewers and the subscribers who continually support this channel. This is Danny signing out. See you next time. Goodbye.